The original Caserta was just outside Eastville, Virginia, on the eastern shore of Virginia. Parts of the original house dated to 1736. In the mid-1900s, it was occupied by Commander George Parker Upshur and his family, his wife and two daughters, and after they died tragically, he decided to move on. The house remained intact until 1975 when it was struck by lightning and unfortunately it burned to the ground. The owners of the property opted not to rebuild and they decided to bide their time and come up with a unique solution to reconstructing Caserta. The method that they used to reconstruct Caserta really shows their passion for historic properties. Basically, they went around other towns and villages along the eastern shore of Virginia looking for properties that had just simply passed their prime. They found them in various states of disrepair. In most cases, they were abandoned, but as you can see, they were not in good health. They would purchase the property, and specifically what they were looking for were houses that had a similar pattern to Caserta in that it was just a series of boxes adjoined over the years. They would buy these properties and then have professionals come in and start dismantling them, taking the roof off. Then after that, they had a caravan that went down Highway 13 right down through the middle of the eastern shore of Virginia. The old houses were destined for a new life. Once they reached the property outside of Eastville, they were methodically reconstructed, and as you can see here, one of the roofs of the house is going back on. This next photograph isn't very high quality, but it gives you an idea of what the assembly looked like. There was a gap left there toward the right, and that was intentional. I got involved because, of course, old houses have old floors, and in this case, they were pine. In this photo, you can see they painted around what would have been a floor cloth, and in other areas, the paint was just uniformly applied to all the floors. It wasn't a real heavy application of paint, which was very fortunate. The stairs obviously were in dire need of help as well. I typically start off by sampling the floor to see if the chemicals that I use will remove the buildup of coatings, and in this case you can see that it did a very good job. The perimeter of the room had an ochre looking paint. There were parts of just an old finish, and then there was also a somewhat interesting area where it looked like part of the floor had been whitewashed. But what was proven to be true was the chemicals would remove it, and we got down to the bare wood. It was very nice aged pine, long leaf, generous lengths, which is typical of what you would see in a lot of old houses of that age. We got started in the summer of 2008, and as you can see, this is what the stairs look like in the before shot, and this is what they look like after all the finishes had been removed. They turned out very nice, very handsome pieces of wood. In the living room, you saw the pattern from the paint on the perimeter. Once it was all removed, we fortunately did not see any traces of any shadows. When pine ages, it does a beautiful job of aging. And in our process of cleaning off the old finishes, paints, and dirt and debris, we end up distressing the wood. This is not intentionally, it's just that the soft tissue of the wood is where it absorbs the paint, the finishes, and the dirt. And of course, when we're removing it, it comes off. And what you get is an extremely handsome look. I've always said it looked like worn leather, and I think that's a very accurate description. This is a sewing room up on the second floor, and you can see that the application of harding oils really did it justice. This is what Caserta looked like when we finished our work restoring the wood floors and we were leaving. As you look at the house, you can see four distinct separate box-like sections. The second from the right is the only section that was new to the house. The other three were from the properties, the structures that they had salvaged from off the eastern shore. The one that was built that was new contained all the modern conveniences, the kitchen, elevator, and but otherwise the house remained very true to the original look. We have to give Dr. Howard Moses and his wife Mary tremendous credit for having the foresight to take on this project and do a wonderful job of rehabilitating, of reconstructing Caserta, and now it is known as Caserta 2 because, as we know, the original went up in smoke back in '75. This is a wonderful project, and I enjoyed the opportunity to work with the Moses on it, as did my brothers.